And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is Charlie Malouf, your host, and I'm here with head coach Stacey McCormick and Carl Hillesland. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks.
Awesome. Good. Glad to be here, man.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. All right, so the last episode, we really got into business operating systems, why a company might want it, what some of the operating systems that are available are out there. Read Traction by Gino Wickman, read Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, read Measure What Matters by John Doerr, read that's OKRs, or read Four Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChesney. There's 4 great books to kind of indoctrinate yourself. Go Michael Gerber's E-Myth if you wanted to, right? Okay, now we want to talk about Mr.Mo, which, Stacey, again, is an acronym for?
More right, more often.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Now, I've often heard you say when you first started with us, nearly 4 years ago now, which was, I'll never tell you to do anything wrong. I'll just tell you to do the right thing. How does that quote go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to ask you to do what's right. So it's not illegal, immoral, dishonest, or we cause you bodily injury. So you should be able to do it, right? But one of the sayings that I always had was just, if I can get my team to do more right more often, or if we can get our team to do more right more often, there is no such thing as perfection in the business world, right? But You do have companies who do more right more often.
I love the whole sentiments behind more right more often. It's wonderful. The audience wants to know, the people want to know, what's the origin story behind Mr.Mo? For the record, its name, how did it come to be? What's the relationship between Mr.Mo and EOS? Carl, I'll start with you.
When I first started with Broad River, my first 6 months, which was July of 2021. My first 6 months was baptism by fire via sitting next to this guy and going to every single store in the enterprise. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if you've never met Stacey McCormick, the guy, I don't know if there's an end to the wisdom and the knowledge that this guy has. Also the wittiness, he's freaking hilarious. But I'm there sitting next to him as we're traveling. He's unpacking Broad River. He's unpacking all of these amazing things. And I'm sitting there on my laptop just driving, scratching my eyes, trying not to, get too car sick, whatever. But what I realized when I start reflecting on the notes is there's a phrase that started popping up more in all of my notes. And somehow I was just anchored it. And that phrase was more right, more often.
Okay.
So it's not about perfection, it's about direction. It's more right, more often.
Whoa, it's not about perfection.
Yep.
It's about direction.
That's right.
That's good.
That's right. And so when I started realizing this, I was like, man, it just got me so much more excited about moving my family across the country from Indiana down to Charlotte, which, by the way, a lot more days of sun a year down here than up there.
Except for yesterday.
Except for yesterday, yeah. But, when we started talking about EOS, and we knew we needed to name it. We were sitting in the office one day, and I don't know if you want to tell a story.
Yeah, well, I think I'll tell that story, but I'll go back even further. It really goes back to during the interview. I'm a big Maxwell fan. I believe we all are. Mm-hmm. And then, so I see, okay, Maxwell certified trainer, and then I see, EOS implementer, and I'm like, okay, EOS, that's really interesting, and that could help us. And a lot, along with your personality and who you are as a person, I just saw the ability that you had, and the other fact of both of those things are things you went and sought out and paid for yourself. Most people that get training in this world, their company pays for it. You went and took your own, you pulled your own self up, went and made the investments of time, energy, money to do that. So I felt like that would add value. So the other thing that happened in those trips was that as I am telling him all of these things, like, as I'm going through all of the, my thoughts and my business principles and what I believe makes things work, all the great things that I found when I got to Broad River and everything else, he would grab his briefcase and he would pop out a one-sheeter and he would start quoting things off of the one-sheeter that I know now was from EOS and all the materials he had. However, it kind of matched up. I'm not not an ego play here or anything like this. I've been very, very successful at getting people to sell more furniture in my career. Everywhere I've ever been, that's happened. And I have a certain way about going about it, but I don't, not unlike many other people, I had never like sat down and really wrote it all out except for the sales process itself and a couple of other things. And he started saying, yeah, well, Stacey, in EOS, that is this, and in EOS, that is this. And it just kept coming to me and coming to me and coming to me. And I'm like, okay, dude, sounds to me like what you've got there kind of synthesizes and systematizes what I've always thought. And so there was a great alignment between what this process does, where we were as a company, and where I am as a an operator and someone who can drive results. So I kind of got really intrigued. Then the other side, then where the name came from was, again, more right, more often. We were having this conversation. He had seen that over and over again. We're sitting in my office one day, and he's like, I'm like, dude, I don't want to call it EOS.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I don't either, because there's things that we might have to do, but right. I said, I don't want to do that. I want to make it ours. I want to make it Broad River, and I want to make it who we are as an organization, and really who we are as a department. I want it to take on our personality and what we want to go accomplish. Because if we're ourselves and we can be authentic, then obviously we're going to have a whole lot better opportunity for this to succeed. So we're sitting there, and I go, why don't we call it Mr.Mo? More right, more often. And he's like, wow. And I think it was one of those moments where we just like, okay, this is really cool that we could just make it this. And then the other thing is, you play off of, Mr.Mo. We both are big like believers in momentum and creating, sustaining momentum. So Mr. Momentum. This is what it's all about. So that's really the story of how it came about. Yeah. And
that's a cool
it's
story.
Pretty awesome.
First of all, I'm going to just kind of replay a couple of things I heard. I don't think that you kind of downplayed the sales process. I had never written it down. That sales process was a pretty extensive book, if I recall correctly.
Oh,
yeah.
So that's a little bit downplaying. That's a Stacey McCormick downplay move. Right. Don't let them do that to you. Number two, you did remind me. I do remember reading that in Carl's resume on EOS. Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan of an operating system. Matter of fact, when we had last episode, I talked about being influenced by the City Furniture operating system. We tried to implement. This was a bad name. We saw CFOS, and this was with Charlie Workman and Ops. I think in Burton Oxford, when they were in Ops, they tried to come up with BROS, Broad River Operating System. That fell flat for the. It was good for one gender, but not the other gender.
Exactly.
The Broad River Operating System. But years prior, we did. When Jonathan and I were running the business together, we tried maybe a microwaved version of EOS, but I'll be honest with you, I never read the book. Now, so it fell flat. It didn't work all the way. So I think the intrigue of EOS and someone who's got that skill set and experience and can indoctrinate it the right way and teach us and said, here's how it aligns. And then to your point, why did you not want to call it EOS?
Again, I think it's not ours. Number one, it's and not only that, we weren't going to use it in its purest form. There are elements of EOS that we didn't have to. I mean, we put this in a department inside of an organization. Okay. So there are financial components to EOS. There are marketing components. There are brand components, like identifying your brand and charting out 10 years. And there's all of those components to, there's an HR component or a human capital for us component to it. And what I felt like and what Carl felt like too was that, I mean, we can improve in everything. However, we're already pretty freaking good at the people thing. Like that was a plus, right? We're already, you guys are, you have really made a major point to create financial stability and predictability inside of our business, you and Bill and Manny. And so we're really good at that. So those were things we didn't have to answer.
That's right.
All we needed to do was find something that we could create clarity
That's right.
And again, I also thought for me it was really about the authenticity of it. That if it's me, then I can go represent that.
Got it. Okay. And you said you could play off of it. Like, I love the thing you said about momentum. I dare say or surmise that wasn't something you thought of when you called it Mr.Mo. That maybe that.
Actually, I said it that day.
Did
in the
you
room.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you were thinking of all the things that Mr.Mo could kind of be short.
Yeah.
That's good. I would not have thought that.
Because we at the time we were trying to gain momentum.
That's right.
Even though we had momentum, we were trying to gain even more momentum, and we were going to have to gain momentum inside of this system too.
And when we decided, so when we were looking at this, exploring this topic a little bit to see, hey, should we do this for our whole company? We called Justin Barnes, who's a big fan of EOS and his company. They're a little bit smaller company than ours, because one of my concerns was, have we outgrown the target size for EOS? And then we called, Davin Salvagno, and Gary Fry, who all have experience with either EOS implementers or all the other operating systems. And what you were saying was, hey, we got the financial stability piece, which I think in the last episode we talked about scaling up might be slightly stronger in that area. And we got the people piece, but you want to take the best of EOS. And one of the knocks I heard about EOS was how they think about people. And I've almost heard it say like it's a little bit punitive, and maybe we're not quite like that in terms of how it like thinks about, or the pluses and minuses and who wants to be plussed or minused. Can you speak a little bit about that? Maybe Stacey or Carl?
I'll take it to start with, and then I'll let Carl kind of put his thoughts to it. I've said that myself, and I think rather than use that term, I think what I would probably use is that it spoke about those things in different language than we did. And so that language did not match up or marry.
Okay.
And it's also probably, well, there's no probably to it. It's more compliance driven than we are as an organization. I think we give a lot more grace. I think we would lean more to develop and teach and give grace, whereas this would say, okay, if you've done these 2 things or these 3 things or these 5 things, then you've got to move this person on. Okay. But the right people, right seat component of it is really smart, and we've done it, and it's been part of the reason we've been able to succeed with it. And so and then when it comes to I think the other people part of it is that I don't think that as good as they could be at it, that they're Broad River. That they are where you guys were when I joined the company.
They being
EOS, the system itself. I think that there is a level of EQ that is present at Broad River Retail, and the passion and the purpose behind furnishing life's best memories that is not present there. They don't talk about purpose as much as they talk about vision.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, for us at Broad River, one of the differences on the people aspect is in EOS, once you identify whether someone's the right person, which they look at the core values and rank the individual based on the core values, plus, minus, or minus, and then the right seat based upon a yes or no answer of, do they get the job, the position, do they want it, do they have the capacity to do it? You come up with a scientific yet subjective evaluation of an individual. And for us, we've naturally looked at individuals and their performance and leaders through that lens. But we've also have had this, grace, more of a non off with your head type of approach. Not to say that EOS necessarily is that, but it's just an identification tool. And then you have to develop a system to develop the people. Our system, and that was something that actually Mr. Mo helped us identify that we needed to do in the first year, is identify a better coaching up system. And, we really leveraged those understandings and learning from that tool.
Okay. So what was the specific problem that Mr. Mo was trying to solve for us?
I think for me, it was to get all of that stuff out of my head into everybody in the same way. But my leadership style was download. You can't know everything I know unless I tell you. And if I tell you over and over and over and over again over time, water dripping on stone is going to leave a mark, right? However, what my style probably didn't account for was a few things. Number one, not everyone is at the same level, right? No, not everyone has that capacity, even though they could be really successful. Like Carl used to always say, "Hey, Stacey, it'd be great if they were you, but they're not." So, but the other thing is that it was also not just the style, but also the consistent message of getting people to actually buy in and not passively agree.
Okay. Yeah, because most behaviors are
caught, not taught. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've really learned from Stacey in my time here is that you got to assume that people want to do a great job. You can't walk into conversations and be like, "That, oh my gosh, again." You can't walk with that mindset. And one of the things that Mr.Mo is able to solve for us was to be able to take that same spirit of we want to catch them doing the right thing, not the wrong thing, catch them doing the right thing, and celebrate that while, and genius of and versus the tyranny of or, and understand where are our opportunities and what are we doing to solve them at the root level for the greater good of the organization, and while increasing critical thinking amongst our leaders, so we don't just have to have a single icon that is downloading every single bit of his genius into every single situation on the front lines, because now there's 5 different levels in between Stacey and the front lines. He can't be in every single one. That's not a scalable approach, and we had to take the awesomeness of this dude and put it in a way that everyone could receive from.
One could say Stacey is Mr.Mo.
One could say.
We should have a mascot for it with the state.
That's right.
That'd be good. So assume positive intent is a great way to think about it and catch people doing things right. Okay. I got a few more questions here on the introduction of Mr.Mo.
Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry. Let me take that one step further because I think this is super important.
Is it about your mascot that we're going to?
No, not at all. This is the catching people doing things right. So while having them trip over the truth, because the process and the way that it's set up with the data component and the people components and all of these things, I don't have to go tell someone that they're not doing it well. The numbers don't lie. Love and math, right? So the math component says it's the truth, absent of conjecture. So what it also does is it removes the personal, a lot of the personal and emotional things out of what causes friction between people, and it creates a happiness level or a joy level with your team because of the consistency, and you're just not getting down on them. It's right here in front of you.
Let's coach on the numbers, not on how I feel about
That's exactly
the numbers. Right.
Exactly.
Or more specifically on the behavior.
Because my intent and the assumption that I have about the intent of that person is that they want to crush it.
Yeah. Got it. Well said. Another good phrase, tripping over the truth. So you got a few, assume positive intent and catch people doing things right while tripping over the truth. Worth repeating those. How long did it take from the initial idea to the implementation? I don't know who wants to take this one. So you had your aha moment of Mr.Mo. I don't want to call it EOS. I want to call it Mr.Mo. When did we launch it?
I think the idea of Mr.Mo, as far as a naming convention, came way after the decision to make the move. I think the idea, I think it probably sprung up in the first 30 days. In one of our drives. I can remember one. We were between Columbia and Augusta on I-20. And you ripped these papers out and had the 6 components, and you were walking me through all of that. And I think that was the moment that I went,
okay,
this is what we need to go do, and this really takes it to another level, and this is going to make it better for everyone in our organization. And then I think from there, it was October 26th. 2021, right? The day before Judah was born.
The day before my son was born.
And so I'll let you take it from kind of there.
Well, Judah came early. a little bit early. So he was supposed to come, mid to late November. And, the doctor said, well, no, it's go time. So when I started in July of 2021, and through all these drives, these infamous drives, I got all these like lessons from Stacey, and he has this infamous one about delegating. I don't know, where he holds his arm like this because it's a basket, right? And there's all these little chicks in it, and he takes his little hand or his hand like a claw machine, right? And he goes, you know what, Carl? As things begin to unfold, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start giving you things that are your responsibility. And you might get frustrated because they're not coming as fast as you'd like, but know that once I'm doing that, it's me trusting you, right? And so when Judah came early, I said, Stace, this is one of those things where we got to get this thing launched because I'm going to go on paternity and go learn how to be a dad. We got to get the system launched. So we pulled up the launch date well over 6 weeks to October 26, 2021 in Tiger River, which is our executive boardroom at Fort Mill. And it was how would you describe that day, Stacey, in a phrase or two?
Chaos. Emotional and mental chaos.
Yeah.
For whom? For whom?
For the people in the room.
And who was in the room?
All of our senior retail leaders.
Yeah. And because they were like, you're going to change the way we do everything?
Well, I think they were excited.
Yeah.
Because they had heard elements from Carl. Mm-hmm. Carl had already been kind of pre-selling the book, right? And he was in the pre-sale mode.
He was politicking.
He was on his marketing. Yeah. He was on his marketing tour with them.
But right. What would it look like?
So they were already they were already intrigued, and I think they already wanted to do it.
Yep.
But they all were used to and accustomed to a download culture that, even though they might be burning brain calories on saying, I don't agree with that, or I don't think that's the way we should do it, or my team's not going to like it, or whatever it is, they were never challenged like this system challenges them in the solving of issues, the creation of the issues list, and then the solving of the issues, where we have this exercise called Keep, Kill, Combine, where every idea goes on the board. Every idea. There might be 100 of them. Mm-hmm. And then we go through and we go, should we keep it? Or should we kill it? And then when you start moving down, is this a keep, kill, combine, keep, kill, combine, keep, kill, combine?
What's combine?
Combine is it really is something else. Okay. It's going to get caught in some other function that's already there. And this session can take as long as 2 or 3 hours, if not longer.
Well, that's segment of the entire day session.
And then what happens is, there's a no politicking rule, so you can say whatever you want about something once, but if you come back and repeat it, you get cut off. And then the other thing is for the first time ever, we gave everyone the power.
That's right.
We empowered everyone to really say what they thought. Mm-hmm. And so you can imagine the amount of disagreements that were happening, because there's strong minds in that room. You got strong Ray Templeton, you got Michael Childers, you got Kevin Kinman, you got Chris Wright, you got Josh Stanley, and you got all of these folks. And at the time, I think there was probably somebody else there too.
We got Renee,
Chris Barrier, Chris Barrier, and they all are very passionate. They all are very successful because we're not. Again, the other thing through this whole thing is one of the things that you told him in the interview that he brought up this morning is, hey, we're not on fire. So, I mean, what everybody has to understand is during this time, we were wildly successful.
Yeah.
Like we were already seeing massive increases and first time evers and records and all of that. But what we were saying is what got us here is not, Marshall Goldsmith, what got us here was not going to get us there.
Yeah.
And so it got them out of their comfort zone. It definitely moved their cheese. And so it was I can tell you a story about it. At the end of the day before Carl's son's supposed to be born, I walk in at the end of the day, just Renee and Carl in the room thinking, and Renee won't mind me sharing this, I don't think so. Because she shares it herself. Oh, yeah. I walk into the room,
it's a positive
and Renee
story.
is sitting there in tears. And Renee has a couple of different things when she gets that emotional, and she doesn't do it often, but when she does, there's the one where she's like really, really frustrated, tears, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, she was raging against the machine a little bit because to her it took her completely out of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
And she likes, and Renee likes harmony. She liked, but I think we all do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, but I also knew at that point when you can get that level of raw emotion, even though, Lord, it's tough and it you don't want it all the time. What you can do is if you manage it right, which Carl did and Renee did, is you can make great strides.
Yeah.
Because Renee was one of the people that we needed to adopt.
Yeah.
And because she's such a powerful woman in our whole ecosystem that if she adopts it and if she comes on board, then the transference of belief can really start to take hold.
Yeah, and you guys had hours together in the car, brainstorming on this, talking through it. You had to kind of microwave and get everyone to where you guys were and had the chance without any pressure to get there organically. So it's 90 days in and we launched this thing. 90 days into your tenure, right? So you started in July, it's late October, and you had to pull it forward 6 weeks.
Almost 4 months.
Yeah, you had to pull it forward because baby Judah's about to be born. So what were the steps to go in between? What were the steps in between to go from ideation to launch, Carl?
Well, ideation to launch was a lot of this from Stacey to me. Okay, and that was Stacey mentioned my interview with you guys, and there was a distinct part in that interview, Charlie, where you said to me, you know what, Carl, I don't need you to come in here and just start changing everything, right? Like, I don't need you to start setting things on fire. Like, we're good, but what we need to do is come alongside and learn and understand who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it. And so we took this slowest, smoothest speed approach in that first 4 months of my career here. And it also allowed Coach and I to build this really great relationship that was very transparent. He got to know me, I got to know him, I got to know how he thinks, feels, and understands people. He's a very empathetic guy. And then also how consistent he was, in what he did. And for me, he was able to see all those things about me. So that trust, ultimately, those are the three components of trust. Our trust just continued to grow to where we felt comfortable with each other and we felt comfortable that this was the right and safe thing for the organization. And much like changing a point of sale system where, that's probably one of the hardest things to do on an organization. This was a very distinctive change in the way we operate from a download culture to we'll tell you what's right. So then you go cascade that message versus here's the issues. How do you want to solve them?
That's right. What did we get right with the implementation?
I would tell you probably a lot of things. To me, I just go back to the phrase I just said, slow is smooth, smooth is speed. We could have turned up the cadence of how fast we allowed Mr.Mo to come at them. But what we felt was more important was to move at the speed of the slowest individual.
To phase it in,
okay. Right? And take our time.
Okay.
We couldn't crash the organization,
That's
right? So if we go in and we force this thing too quick, then what happens is, what's the risk in that? And we wanted to mitigate that risk. But I'll tell you some other things that went right. One thing is Carl was committed at a level that I guarantee you there are days, because he and I had the conversations, where he walked out of that room and I don't know that he doubted that he was doing the right thing, but he might have doubted that he was doing the right thing based on how emotionally taxing it was to get people through, to reframe how they thought about things. And not that we weren't thinking about the wrong things. We were thinking about the right things. We were just thinking about them differently. And the challenges that, one of the things that we'll cover, I'm sure, is that Mr.Mo, it takes the ability to have an excuse out of the way, and you have to stand there and face down your own fears and your own demons, if you will, and it doesn't give you any. It not only exposes them for you, but it exposes them to anyone who's involved in the organization. Like, it stands out.
Peer-to-peer accountability.
And that's the strongest form of accountability, though, is peer-to-peer, and it creates that. So I think what we got right was that, although I feel like in hindsight we probably could have went a little faster, and probably should have went a little faster, but I'll tell you why that was a problem when it comes up. But the other thing is that I think that what we had at Broad River going into it was something that helped us get it right, or that was part of getting it right. There was a high level of trust for you.
That's right.
For the company, for Manny, for you and Manny and the company. There was a high level of trust for me by that time, right? And so when I transferred that trust to Carl and transferred that belief to Carl, it allowed us to work through those obstacles, along with the fact that he came in and built trust as well.
Yeah. Well, I think whether you would have gone faster or not early on, you de-risked the situation by saying, you know what could go wrong? What is it not only not going well, but then it crashes and it doesn't go well at all. We have to abort. And so you had a long-term view of where you wanted to go, and it's still in process. But you wanted to ensure success, and you could afford to take your time. And then the other thing is you need someone who's super die-hard about it, who won't back down from the emotional attacks of pushing against people who are trying to change behaviors. So you had that kind of with Carl. So just what would you have done differently?
So what I would have done differently, because I was also part of the problem, and being able to accept that and understand it and have the self-awareness to do it, is that even though I knew it was the right thing, I wasn't as familiar with it as I should have been. So therefore, I also have this habit set of all these things that I feel and the way that I've always done things, where I could just go out and just grab a hold of something and change it because I wanted to, and it needed to happen. Not because I wanted to, because of my ego. It needed to happen, right? And there was a specific process and way that things had to go, and it wasn't comfortable for me. So, but because I didn't go grab all of the tools, like there's an extensive library of books that are written both from a analytical, data-driven standpoint or a story standpoint. You got the same book really written in two versions. I should have read every one of those books. I should have become the expert or tried to catch up on the expertise of the program, because a lot of times when he was doing things and he was telling me that things needed to be done, I was probably a major obstacle in getting that done because it made me uncomfortable.
Okay.
And so that's what I would have done differently. I would have went and been the Olympic learner on that quicker and dug in and got that done.
Yeah, I think that's good self-awareness. Would you have done anything differently, Carl?
Yeah, I think I think those are amazing. I mean, that's the kind of leader that we've got with Coach, right? Like smart, hungry, and humble, the ideal team player. Like this is things that I would have done different are probably surrounding the people component. And what I mean by that is I think we should have brought in more or sooner, not necessarily more, but sooner, the understanding of personality styles, how people work together, the strengths of others, things like DISC or Strength Finders or Colby or whatever it is, and so that we have a better understanding of holistically how we work together as individuals, but also as a team. We focused more on the mechanics of the operating system, simply because we, like you said, we wanted to de-risk, like we couldn't throw off the whole system. But I would have loved to bring in more of those personality enhancement and understanding, tools.
So I want to kind of say that I would say to the same level that I should have become the Olympic learner and went and mastered all of the tools and had a better understanding of it. I think that's another thing that we would do differently is everyone on the senior retail leadership team, we would have introduced them to those tools. And even though Carl would hand them the book and they would read it and they would do it, we should have really educated and had a little bit more focus around the education around the program.
Yeah, maybe an organic buy-in.
Yes.
Maybe doing a book club on the book, going through it, talking through what do you like, what do you not like.
Absolutely.
And maybe they would have arrived at, we want to do this ourselves for ourselves, but we pulled it forward because the baby was coming. We wanted to go fast.
Right.
Okay, last question for this episode. What would you advise others who are attempting to implement something similar?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Start out. It takes time. You use the term microwave. This is not a microwave deal. This is a long-term commitment. And we talked a lot about how we had a lot of things going in our favor. Sales were good. Culture was good. You don't necessarily have to have those things be good in order for an operating system to launch either. Just want to note that, but it's going to take time. We're 2.5 years into this. And for us, because of where we started from, I would say started at 50-yard line, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of starting with our backs against the goal line, we had a lot of things in our favor. In the 2 years, we were able to take our executive team as far as our senior retail team, and then we were able to apply Mr.Mo to not only our executive team, our regional team, but also our store teams. So we've been able to cascade this into 3 levels of our organization, and we'll seek to continue doing that, with the sales managers and frontline folks. Okay. But it takes time.
What I would say is, whatever it is, you need a system. So I don't think there's going to be a bad one. Mm-hmm. I think you need to do the studying to get where you're at. But what would I say? I would say be strategic, be methodical, because one of the things that on February 25th, 2020, that I stood in front of the Broad River retail performance team and other leaders in that room and said was that we will have a sales process, and that process will not change, right? So you're going to be able to count on it. And then what I would say you need to say if you're going to start something like this is, we're going to have a business operating system, and that system is going to be consistent, and we will make tweaks and improvements, but this is a commitment. So be committed.
Yeah.
So if I can just recap what I think I've heard from our first 2 episodes in this series, if you're a business owner, if you're a CEO, if you're a department leader, if you're leading a team, first understand the benefits of a business operating system and determine for yourself if you think it's something that your company needs. We would purport that and posit that you probably can benefit from it based off of the size and scale of your team, department, company, organization. Once you do that, explore the different systems that are out there. You might have to read some books or listen to some books, listen to some podcasts, talk to some consultants. Number 3, you probably need a champion or 2 or 3 and get educated together on the program, like that you're going to, maybe decide the program together that you're going to use, and then get your circle of team influencers to go through the same materials. I said I was done asking questions. Would you bring in an implementer from the outside, from one of these companies in the beginning, if you're going to try to indoctrinate? Or are they going to say, no, it's got to be called EOS, for instance, not Mr.Mo?
Well, you could absolutely bring in an implementer. Part of bringing in an implementer is because their job is to call out all the impurities, all the BS, right? You've got egos attached and oftentimes internal people have a hard time calling out that, ego in the senior vice president of retail, or whatever it is, if they're a direct report, because they still got to work together. So the implementer takes the brunt of those kind of conversations, which ultimately are usually the sticking points.
Yeah, and usually so that's the benefit of having someone external versus internal. And so, but make sure you're super educated and bring folks along with you, and then say, this is what we're going to do. We're not backing away from it. But to do that, you have to become a master or an expert at this program or system and its benefits, because you're going to have to push to get organizational and personal people change, behavioral change.
Well, one of the beautiful things about it, though, is it creates that flexibility or elasticity, if you will, to be able to change yourself while you're in it, because you're going to have to take some element of it and right size it or craft it for your company, your culture, what you do, what you want done. And what this basic discipline and guideline does is allows you to be able to do that.
Yeah. So that's a great conversation on the introduction of Mr.Mo into Broad River Retail. Come back next week, because we're going to continue this conversation if you guys will come back. And I really want to talk about the impact we've seen with Mr.Mo on our business. Because if you look at the last 2+ years, the trajectory of taking what was already a fast growing, high impact, successful company has even elevated and escalated and ramped up and amplified and multiplied. So let's come back next week to get more on this topic of business operating systems and the impact of Mr. Mo. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.